Welcome to the Fantasy Throwdown Podcast, bringing you the latest updates from the world of sports, gambling, and pop culture. Because you can't have a show without hot takes or a Tiger King meme these days. Know what I'm saying? Now, with over 200 episodes and ready to get after it again, here's your host, Dwayne Callender.
Hello and welcome, folks. I am recording this episode Sunday night for release sometime Monday morning. And mainly it's because this Sunday night football game is utterly terrible because all the primary playmakers of the Bucs are basically injured at this point. You've got Mike Evans out with a hamstring injury. Chris Godwin injured his knee. A couple more injuries with Leonard Fournette going down with a hamstring injury of his own. Tom Brady is basically throwing to the fourth and fifth string wide receivers because, of course, Antonio Brown's out. And then, meanwhile, the Saints can't blow out the Bucs because Taysom Hill can't throw the ball. Like, this is terrible football. I'm not even sure if we're going to get into this total is even going to hit 20. I can't believe this game has devolved this poorly. But, man, this is a terrible game. I'm looking for a source of inspiration that maybe the Bucs can hit a deep pass play, but it's looking rough out there right now. I thought maybe you could get Scotty Miller over the top in this second half when I did my builds, or even Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller are not getting it done tonight so far, at least in this second half. So I'm recording this episode before I hit the sack, just because I'm not sure how much time I'm going to get to do this episode tomorrow, but realistically, it's a two-gamer that shouldn't have been a two-gamer because this Browns-Raiders game was moved from Saturday to Monday, and I don't like the setup now because realistically, the idea would have been to try to target specific pieces in this game to pair with the Colts players because I didn't like any of the New England folks outside of Hunter Henry. In terms of the matchup, which ended up kind of being right, because in the showdown format, you needed Hunter Henry and the captain, and unfortunately, I did not play Hunter Henry and the captain because I didn't think he was going to get that many red zone targets, and he ended up in the comeback script, he ended up getting 2 touchdowns. But that's neither here nor there. So let's talk about this Raiders-Browns game, and we don't really know what we're getting with the Browns still. I mean, yes, we know that most of the team is still in health and safety protocols. So it's going to be a limited group. They didn't want to play it in they didn't want to play the game Saturday just because the Browns, it didn't appear that they had enough players to field a competitive roster. We'll see what they come out with Monday, but it doesn't look to be that significant in terms of a build. So I'm gonna say it. It's just a case where we got a low scoring game. I don't know why people are still favoring the Browns to win this game. I know the Raiders suck, but and the Raiders are terrible on run defense, but the issue is, and then what I kind of have a little bit of a problem with is the fact that, I thought we were going to get Case Keenum at QB. I think Nick Mullins is actually worse than Case Keenum, and decision-making wise, he makes just as many bad decisions as Baker Mayfield. So we're actually in a spot where the usual issues we see with the Browns, why they lose games, are very much apparent here. So it's kind of a weird mix where the Browns, this was a home game. The Browns were 6.5-point favorites originally, and when these lines came out. So, I kind of targeted that because I thought that was way too rich of a line to give the Browns originally. This line did come down further with all the issues going on with the Browns in the first place. So the Browns are only favored by 3, which is where it really should have been to begin with. Even if Baker and some of these other guys were out of COVID protocols, that's where it should have been. In terms of other injuries for the Browns, Kareem Hunt's out. So you got Nick Chubb, and we're going to talk about this other cat here, D'Ernest Johnson, as well, because D'Ernest is still going to get some carries in the mix here. And I think, just the way the Browns play, they're going to find ways of mixing it up. So I wouldn't call it the craziest thing in the world that D'Ernest Johnson hits double digits tonight in terms of points, because he gets a goal line carry and people are going to tilt because they're expecting Nick Chubb to get the carry. I know the Raiders are going to give Josh Jacobs goal line carries. It's one of those things where I'm not saying you absolutely have to play Josh Jacobs over Nick Chubb. I'm just saying there is a higher risk of Nick Chubb failing than Josh Jacobs just hitting his floor. So, yes, if we're chasing GPPs, we're going to play Nick Chubb over Josh Jacobs. Don't get me wrong. But what I am saying is, in terms of the failure rate, there's a real chance that Nick Chubb fails to hit, because you're realistically, folks are looking for Nick Chubb to hit somewhere between 18 and 20 points today, or tomorrow. I'm speaking in the future, but you know what I mean, like for Monday. Anyway, it's kind of one of those situations where I kind of look at it as, it's going to be a very predictable Browns attack. No one is going to be surprised by what Nick Chubb is going to be doing by and large. I mean, you shouldn't be. You really shouldn't be surprised if Nick Chubb is in the teens. Realistically, I think that's a fair assessment in my opinion. I don't look at this as a case where I really don't. I don't look at this as a case where you're going to see the Browns just completely manhandle the Raiders. Normally, if both teams were completely healthy, yeah, maybe. But the Browns still haven't committed to a full-on rushing attack all year. The exception being the D'Ernest Johnson game, because they didn't have anyone else to use. So they had Case Keenum and D'Ernest Johnson, and they used it on Thursday Night Football. That was the only game. Could they do a repeat of that and have it be Nick Chubb getting the work? Yeah, they could. But I'm not banking on it, because that's just not how they've operated. They just haven't operated in that fashion. So, to me, this is a case where I think you can play. And again, this is not me saying this is a good play. I'm just saying, if you're trying to get different and you're wanting to be a little bit more proactive, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to be playing in this 2-game slate, to be playing Justin Fields and then run it back with multiple pieces in the Raiders-Browns game that's not in the QB spot. Because I think you can play Josh Jacobs and Nick Chubb and then still play Dalvin Cook for the Monday night game. Because the Raiders-Browns game's at 5, and the prices, realistically, the prices don't matter on DraftKings and FanDuel today. Realistically, for this 2-gamer on Monday, it doesn't matter, because you got backup QBs. So Nick Mullins is dirt cheap. Fields is always price low, because Fields just, he still struggles throwing the ball. The priciest cat on the slate is David Carr. I mean, well, I should say David Carr. It's going to be Kirk Cousins, but the issue with playing Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins in primetime. Like, no one in their right mind should be trusting Kirk Cousins in primetime. Because every time we see Kirk Cousins play in primetime, he does random crap that, like, you're just wondering what in the world are you thinking, and his numbers just don't get there. He doesn't get there production-wise when it comes to primetime. So to me, like, Cousins is one of the automatic fades. I don't want to say go crazy fading Justin Jefferson, but if we know Cousins struggles in primetime, to me, Justin Jefferson being the most expensive player on the slate lends itself to saying, hey, I think we got to fade Justin Jefferson just because, could you play him? Yes, you can play him on the 2-game slate. I'm not saying no. What I am saying is, if Dalvin Cook is the exact same price as Justin Jefferson, why are we playing Justin Jefferson when we know Justin Jefferson needs to have he legitimately needs to have Kirk Cousins not suck. He needs to have it not suck. And the thing of it is that if we're correlating this properly, there's negative correlation between Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. To me, you cannot play Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson in the same lineup for this particular 2-gamer slate. It doesn't make sense. For the Raiders, their construction is pitter-patter passes, just catching a bunch of short receptions with Hunter Renfrow and the like. And then when you get down in the red zone, you punch it in with Josh Jacobs. And yes, there's going to be negative correlation with Josh Jacobs and Hunter Renfrow. I'm not saying no, but it's worse for the Vikings because Justin Jefferson is so explosive as a receiver. He's just looking to streak down the sideline, and he's going in on his own. He's not getting stopped like a Hunter Renfrow, like 5 yards short of the end zone because he doesn't have any explosive bursts. To me, I have a harder time seeing Dalvin Cook score in the red zone because the way the Vikings have typically operated, they like to throw the ball in the red zone. They're not looking to try to punch it in. And as much as Mike Zimmer grimaces on the sidelines at the play calling that he never seems to take any interest in being more hands-on with, even though he's the head coach, I would like to think that should fall in your job description somehow, that you would be more attentive to the actual play calling before it gets to game day. But, Dalvin Cook really has been more catered towards longer runs outside of first and goal than actually getting it inside of first and goal. So I'm a little bit skittish about playing Justin Jefferson. Plus, you have the possibility of Adam Thielen coming back, which is also going to take away some receptions from Jefferson. I don't think there's that great of I just don't think it's that great of a mix. Like, you need to hold that to me, and we won't know this for sure before the lock happens. You gotta know for sure that Adam Thielen's not playing. There's a chance Adam Thielen plays tonight or tomorrow night. I just don't. I don't see the upside. Well, I see the upside with Justin Jefferson. I should say that. He could always house one against the Bears, even though the Bears have a decent enough secondary to defend against them. Justin Jefferson is good enough that he could just take one to the house on his own. The problem is that I just think he's going to have such fewer opportunities, and Dalvin Cook is in the exact same price range, and you still have Nick Chubb. It's like, to me, I look at Justin Jefferson, and I know his ownership's going to be high. to me, fading Justin Jefferson makes all the sense in the world, because if you're playing Justin Jefferson, you have to kind of play Kirk Cousins with him. And I think just getting away from Kirk Cousins and entirely is the way to go in terms of building. I think if you're playing the other three quarterbacks instead of Kirk Cousins, somewhere between 40 and 50% of the field is going to play Kirk Cousins because they want to play Justin Jefferson. And I just think we know Kirk Cousins just has difficulty performing in primetime games. Realistically, that's just the way it's been. And he needs, and you saw it with the Steelers game. Dalvin Cook, destroyed the Steelers. Kirk Cousins almost let the Steelers back in it because he just could not complete passes properly. It's one of those inexplicable things. The Steelers had no business even coming close to being within double digits of that game, let alone having an opportunity of getting a touchdown and a potentially game-tying 2-point conversion at the very end. So, to me, the play here for the 2-game slate is let's focus on the Raiders-Browns game. I think you can get value with some of these plays. If you get Donovan Peoples-Jones, you look at a Rashard Higgins, you can probably get value there. And then you play Justin Fields with a Darnell Mooney. I think you can make it work, in my opinion. I think it's workable if you get Mooney. And again, Mooney's not going to be a surprise play. People are going to want to play Mooney too. So I'm not saying this is going to be, this totally unexpected play. There are ways where Darnell Mooney is very much in a standard build. What I am going to say though is I kind of want to avoid, and again, this is just me. I would be saying, this is just a case where getting creative and just being way and I'm saying if you're mass multi-entering, yes, you can play Justin Jefferson. But what I'm gonna say is being well under the field on Justin Jefferson and concentrating more on the early game. If there's a chance that you get Thielen in there, taking away pass attempts and targets to Justin Jefferson, I think you're putting yourself in a far, far better position of being different and being able to cash something significant tonight than by trying to force in probably the most popular play on the entire. I think Justin Jefferson's going to be higher owned than Dalvin Cook, and I don't understand why. I would rather be trying to get the rock to Cook to wear down because we don't know the status of Akeem Hicks and and Mac. I mean, if one of those two guys misses, this is a Dalvin Cook game without a doubt. So to me, I kind of look at this as a case where you don't necessarily have to overthink it. I would be looking more towards getting the exposure that we be looking for with Justin Fields. You fit in Mooney, you make it work, and and kind of going that way. I don't see the rationale of going in a different direction. To be perfectly honest, I think you kind of have to lean into the QB plays that you're not as comfortable with, and then get creative with some of these Browns Raiders players, because I think at the end of the day, that's where you're going to be able to see enough of a difference and still be on the opposite side of not playing Justin Jefferson. That's where the leverage comes in. By not having Jefferson in the lineup and you're still playing some of the pieces in the Minnesota game and focusing on Cook, I think that's a more worthwhile statement. And not for nothing, you can also get different if you're playing, like, for instance, I'll throw this out there. If you want to play Derek Carr, Chubb, fade Josh Jacobs, and kind of go with the Raiders passing game. You can go with Cook and David Montgomery, and then play like a Zay Jones and a Hunter Renfrow, or like or swap Zay Jones and play a Foster Moreau in the tight end spot along with Hunter Renfrow, and then you could play a piece from from the Bear side. There are different ways to make it work, in my opinion. Today, you don't have to force in Justin Jefferson. I just think that at least from where I'm seeing, like some of his projected ownership, and I think folks are looking at Justin Jefferson's season and just saying, yeah, like, how can I not play him on this slate? The salaries are cheap enough that I can fit him in. I think that's where you kind of go in the other direction, and yeah, you'll be in a much smaller minority in that regard by going in a different direction. So, that's my thought for this two gamer in terms of like just where the games I think end up going. I know people want to, like, just they're landing hard on, and the line just keeps creeping closer and closer to Minnesota just stomping the Bears. If you got this early and it was Minnesota 3.5, great. But road favorite by a touchdown, that's not Minnesota. Like, I'm sorry, that's just not how they've operated. So to me, I just hate the bet if you're taking Minnesota. I would rather take the Bear side if you're looking at 6.5, 7 points. Just take the Bear side as the underdog at home and go with that. Whereas in the Vegas Cleveland matchup, again, I think Vegas has a legit shot at winning this game. So Vegas, if you bet it early and you have Vegas +6, great. But if you don't, and you're kind of at Vegas at 3, not necessarily the way to force it in. So that I wouldn't necessarily go down that road. I'd probably use this as a teaser. So before I wrap up, I would just like to say, in terms of Showdown, if you're playing it from a DFS standpoint, I talked about what I thought for the two gamer. For Showdown, I'm leaning more towards Raiders passing game. So I think you can play Hunter Renfrow in the captain, or you can play David Carr in the captain, and obviously you're going to have Hunter Renfrow in that build as well. And, Foster Moreau certainly can be a factor in there, but don't forget about Deshaun Jackson either. That's why I'm saying, for the two gamer, thinking about different pieces in the Raiders-Browns game is probably the way to go. And Rashard Higgins is way too cheap in terms of the Showdown pricing. He's only $1,800, and he has just as much chance, in my opinion, as Donovan Peoples-Jones to make a difference on this slate. Because, again, Nick Mullins is throwing to the practice guys more often than not. So he may have a rapport that's better with Higgins than Peoples-Jones. You may not know that. We won't know this. It just depends on how the practices actually went in training camp. So, it is what it is tonight in terms of it being a mess. And as far as the Monday Night Football showdown and my thoughts, again, I look at the pricing and I'm saying to myself, it makes way more sense. So, again, for Monday Night Football, I think the ownership on Jefferson is going to be so high that fading Jefferson, mainly because we don't trust Kirk Cousins at all, might actually be the best way to go about this, because on Showdown, Jefferson is priced just below Dalvin Cook, which is going to make folks even more likely to play Jefferson over Cook. And then, depending on how you want to build this, I kind of like Mooney in the captain spot just because it gives me the salary savings so that I can fit in Fields, Montgomery, and Cook. But if you want to play Cook captain, you can still fit in all the guys I mentioned. You just have to get a little bit more creative in terms of backup running back, and then you can look at Inyewu. I probably just butchered his name, but anyway, if you look up the backup running back situation for Minnesota, Nene, or however you, I think it's Nene. Kene and oh wow, I completely butchered that. Kene and Ngwaku. Oh man, that's terrible on my part, but it's late Sunday night. But regardless, I think that's kind of a way to go really cheap at $800 on DraftKings. The FanDuel pricing is going to be a little bit different, but I think just fading Jefferson is the way to go for Showdown and in the 2-game slate. Yeah, Jefferson could go off and completely crush us, but guess what? You're going to be there with about 70% or more of the field. I don't think there's a way to get there with Jefferson and soloship. I think if it's Jefferson that dominates the slate, I think it's just going to be a huge chop at the top and not a solo shipper. I just don't see how Jefferson is a solo shipper build tonight. And, that's what we're kind of going for. If we can't find another pathway to get there, sometimes, you accept the chop. But I don't think this is one of those days. So tomorrow. So, that's kind of where I'm at. So, news could change. So obviously, if you see something that calls out something you're listening to this on, obviously make a pivot. But in my opinion, this will be coming out Monday morning. So by the time the afternoon rolls around, if you start hearing other news to the contrary, make your own decisions to pivot. I'm not going to be able to update in time, so take from that what you will. But good luck tomorrow, folks. And tonight just shows the randomness of the NFL. I mean, that's what it goes sometimes. But we move on to the next day. So goodbye for now, and until next time, have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Throwdown Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all other major outlets.